Okay, so now we should be live right now. Okay, so if anyone's watching the stream and you can hear us, can I get a little bit of a shout out in the comments? In the live chat section. Cool. Joanna, you can start replying. We are live and I think you can hear me, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so now I think everything should be proper. There are no double voices or anything like that. So, okay, cool. Okay, so no one really has the link right now, just me, you, and Tapaswini. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so Joanna, we're going to start live right now and I'm going to begin. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, great. So I am Nikita Raghunath and I'm a part of open source help community and as a part of the weekly open source contribution session, we have Joanna with us, and let me give you a brief bio about her before we begin. So Joanna graduated with a degree in software engineering from the Makerere University in Uganda. She also went on to work on Fintech solutions later on. Later, she also decided to follow her childhood dreams and is now pursuing aeronautical engineering. How cool is that? She was also a Rails Girl Summer of Code scholar and is currently an outreachy intern with Ceph. Moreover, she does technical talks locally and internationally about Python, Ruby, etc. And to top it all off, she's also publishing a book about Python. Welcome, Joanna, and let's start the session.
Thank you.
Yeah, so first question that I'd like to ask you is the question that I'm pretty sure everyone has on their minds. So you first completed engineering and software, and now you're doing aeronautical engineering. So tell us about it more.
Aeronautical engineering had always been my childhood dream. So I went to, when I was studying software engineering, I actually went to college for software engineering because I had a scholarship. So ideally, it wasn't my first choice. So I studied through my scholarship, and when I was done, I decided to pursue my childhood dream, that was aeronautical engineering, and I'm having fun. However, if you notice, there is an intersection between computer programming and aeronautical engineering, because there's a part in aeronautical engineering called avionics, which has a bit of programming, and so it's not really a change of career in a way. So yeah, basically.
Oh, that's super cool. And so what exactly are you working on even in your aeronautical engineering degree? Like how does I mean you mentioned that software engineering and aeronautical engineering do have an overlap. So can you explain a little bit more about us that how exactly it relates? For example, what software component are you working on? Something like that.
Okay, so aeronautical engineering has two departments. So there's a bit for mechanics and there's a bit for avionics. So avionics is about electronics and systems in an aircraft. So that's where software engineering meets aeronautical engineering. So this year I'll be presenting a paper on big data and aircraft maintenance. Basically, we're tracking engine logs of an aircraft. It's basically data that the Boeing 787 releases after every flight. That's about 500 gigabytes of data. So this year I'll be presenting a paper on how we can analyze that 500 gigabytes of data to create insight into aircraft maintenance and inform aircraft maintenance engineers about what they should actually be working on their next maintenance schedule. So yeah, that's basically how software engineering and computer programming meets aeronautical engineering and aviation.
That's super cool, and paper and everything. Wow, I'm impressed. Okay, so let's talk about open source contributions now. And so I want to ask you, what was your first contribution to an open source project, and to which organization was it for?
Okay, my first contribution to open source was during around July last year, when I was accepted for Rails Girls Summer of Code. So my first contribution was to a project called qutebrowser. qutebrowser is basically a keyboard-based browser based on pyqt5. So it's like any browser like Chrome and Firefox, only that it's super cool, better than Firefox, because we basically browse the internet using commands. So if you've ever used Vim, the text editor Vim, so you probably love qutebrowser because for example, if you wanted to open up a website, you're basically using commands rather than more of your keyboard than your mouse. So it's basically interesting. So that's when I made my first pull request during Rails Girls Summer of Code, and the mentor and my supervisor for Rails Girls Summer of Code was super helpful in me achieving my first pull request. I remember it was a bit tricky because actually the mentor helped panel beat it before he finally merged it. So that is how a bit half-baked or I was during my first pull request. So however, with great help, I was able to continue making more pull requests after then.
Did you face any trouble with your first pull request? I mean, you mentioned about your mentor helping you out, but what I'm asking is, did you think anything emotionally, like you felt you were not, you were feeling not capable enough to contribute to some project? I'm asking this question because most of the open source contributors, when they start out, they feel that they don't know enough to contribute for a project. Did you face something like that? Did you feel like you don't know enough to contribute for a project? Did you learn on the go? What do you think?
I think that's a good question. Actually, remember before I actually did Rails Girls Summer of Code, had actually worked for 2 companies, but I still felt like I wasn't capable, like I didn't qualify to contribute to open source. I used to have a love for open source, like I really wanted to contribute to open source, but I did not have a starting point. I did not know how to really get started. So I was just lucky that I found Rails Girls Summer of Code and they were able to kind of hold my hand. However, even on my first pull request, I still felt like I wasn't good enough. I think everyone faces that. I don't know. I feel common to
Yeah,
everybody.
I'm pretty sure everyone does. Even I did too.
You always feel like I'm not good enough, or I'm not writing the code right, or I'm spending too long on an issue, or my code just sucks. Or before you actually commit, you're feeling like, okay, my code maybe sucks, or they won't even like it. So I also felt that kind of stuff, despite the fact that I'd even coded in industry for around 2.5 years.
So
Imagine. So I still
yeah.
felt like
So I think
so.
this is a really good inspirational thing to learn from for new contributors, because if you are facing something like that, you can be sure that you can be as awesome as Joannah after a few months. So
Yeah.
that's cool. So okay, so that was nice to hear. And so you've been in Rails Girl Summer of Code intern, like you said, and now you're an outreachy intern too. So what do you think are the differences and similarities between the two programs?
The difference between the two programs is kind of outreachy is a bit competitive to get into.
Okay.
Yes. I cannot say Rose Girl Summer of Code is not as competitive, but the difference is for Rose Girl Summer of Code, you do not need to have contributed to the project you really want to do during summer. So basically, you apply, and they really need to be impressed with maybe your past experience in community and the likes, not necessarily about what contribution you've already done. But however, outreach is more involving because even your application process, you basically have to make some pull requests or a small contribution to the project you want to contribute to during summer. Yeah, so outreach is a bit more competitive and more involving. So that's the basic difference.
Oh, that's cool. And do you have to submit a proposal for the Rails Girl Summer of Code as well?
No, actually, you don't really need to submit a
So
proposal.
what's the procedure like for applying there?
So there is just there is an application form you need to fill.
Okay.
Yeah, basically. So you need the only different another difference is you work on a project in pairs. So you need to be two of you. So you apply two of you. There's a basic form where you fill a couple of things. However, emphasis in Rose Girl Summer of Code is basically you need to be. They encourage people to learn more than making milestones. Yeah. So basically, the goal is to ensure that the participants are learning as opposed to pushing a lot of code and achieving many things. They emphasize that at least the participants should be able to learn a lot by end of summer.
That's a nice perspective. And there's this one follow-up question that I want to ask is that lots of people ask how to write a proposal for Outreachy or for, say, Google Summer of Code. So I'm pretty sure you must have had a really awesome proposal. So do you have any tips, or can you just walk us through your experience of writing the proposal for Outreachy?
Okay. First of all, I would advise anybody that wants to really have a good proposal to look at existing proposals for other students that participated in a previous year. I think it's very helpful. I'm saying this because before I got accepted for outreach, I applied in the previous round and I didn't get in, and I'm sure it was because of my proposal. I really didn't take time to study what really a good proposal should look like. So I really did it from my own understanding, which is not good sometimes. You need to learn from other people's mistakes. And this time, I actually learned from very many people, from proposals from other people. I was able to compare and come up with a good proposal. And this time, I'm sure I was accepted because I had a slightly better proposal compared to last year. And of course, we are not islands, and contribute to the project you're most interested in. If you choose a project you're very interested in, you'll develop a better proposal. Yeah, a good proposal. Yeah.
That's cool. That's solid advice. And after all of this, I want to ask you the first basic question. How did you find out about Rails Girl Summer of Code and Outreachy, both of them? How did you come
Okay.
across it?
So I'll begin with Rails Girl Summer of Code. So I was speaking at one of the tech events in my country, Uganda. It was called Geek Night Kampala. So after that talk, there were some ladies who attended my talk, and so they requested me that I spent some extra time of the talk to explain to them what I was actually talking about. In other words, they were interested in what I was talking about. So I took off some time with them, and they actually knew about Rose Girl Summer of Code, and one of them requested that I be their teammate, yeah, for Rose
Oh,
Girl Summer of Code.
wow.
So I got to know about Rosgar's Summer of Code from one of the people I was teaching, something about unit testing in Python and the like. So from there, I had good networks. Yeah. So through the Rosgar Summer of Code community, I was able to know about outreachy. And so, yeah, I followed through the details and yeah, I got to apply. So outreachy, I got to know about it through Rails Girls Summer of Code.
That is awesome. So, I want to ask you, like, for what open source projects are you currently working on right now?
Okay, so currently I'm working on a project from Ceph,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called Multi Language RGW testing. So basically, Ceph has a set of Python suite or a sort of Python tests that are trying to test the Rados gateway. Rados gateway has like an S3 interface of
Okay.
kind of like an Amazon AWS S3 interface. So we are writing tests to test Amazon against that S3 interface. So part of my work this summer is to write 3 other test suites. Currently, Ceph has a Python test suite. So I'm supposed to extend testing for RGW in Go, Java, and C++. So during summer, I think those should be my deliverables. I should be able to get those 3 test suites up and connected to Theothology.
Oh, that's nice. And since you're working with multiple languages, Go, Java, and C++, did you know all these languages initially before starting to contribute to the project, or did you learn something while contributing?
For actually for Go, I knew a little about Go because I
Yeah.
started learning Go last year. But
Yeah.
I felt like that was not so much experience. Java, I knew Java, but it wasn't a language I use every day. So probably, well, things are not so new. However, it's not a language I've been using every day. So I would also be safe to say I'm a bit intermediate on the languages. And C++, I focused on it during the application period because it was one of the languages that I was least familiar with. So through this, you get to notice that I was actually not so super good with all the languages I'm actually working with during the summer. However, I think as a programmer, we should give room to learning. You will not be in your comfort zone for the rest of your life. Personally, my comfort zone is Python, but life will never put you in Python like in your comfort zone every day. And it's super interesting. I think I'm loving it, like, learning new languages and learning new technologies. I think it's super awesome and it's interesting to me.
Wow. And okay, so I think there's a major lesson in what you just said right now, because again, one of the most frequent questions new contributors ask is, I don't know, for example, let's say Python. So I don't know Python. How am I supposed to contribute to this project? And that creates a huge blocker for them for beginning to contribute. So I think this is really important, that even if you're not so comfortable with a language, you can still learn on the go. This is amazing. Thank you. And
Actually,
yeah, so please go on.
Nikita, I think we were last year we contributed to Task Cluster with you, and we
Yeah,
all
yeah,
did
we
Go.
contributed together. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
we didn't know Go at all, so we began
Exactly.
contributing to Task Cluster like without any Go knowledge, totally no Go knowledge. So I believe you can contribute to a project where you've actually never programmed in a language. Just be open to learn, and be
Yeah.
productive. That is all.
That's amazing. Yeah. So, just a little background to the viewers. So, Joanna and I, we contributed together to a project called Task Cluster. It's a part of Mozilla's task execution framework, and it involved writing Go. And neither of us had experience in Go before. I think neither of us knew about how to program in Go at all. And we learned go while contributing to the project, solving bugs, issues, etc. So I think anyone can do it. I mean, seriously, that is easy and anyone can do it. Cool.
Exactly.
So the next question I want to ask you is, we talked a couple of days back, and you mentioned about learning different methods of communication, or or how to talk to mentors, or how to communicate in general in the open source community. Can you shed some light on that? For example,
I,
you talked about the a little like a fear of how you contribute or some. Just go on, just talk your heart out.
Okay, so we're having a very interesting chat with Nikita last week, and in open source, I think the best way to communicate is through IRC. You
Yeah.
know, it's the commonest way of communicating, and most projects usually most companies will have channels where you can meet the developers and you're able to ask questions or ask for a bug you can begin contributing to. And it's very advisable that you use the general channel, the general channel where all people are, as opposed to reaching out to a particular person on IRC, because when you're in the general channel, what happens is that you're able to get feedback from many other developers and many other people, and you just don't seem like you're isolated, and besides, you get used to the community. The most important thing you need to note is that there are no dumb questions when you're beginning to contribute. Just never fear to ask any question at any time. And at times, I've also faced it. Maybe you ask a question and a mentor answers your question, but you still don't understand what he has actually told you, right? So
Yeah.
most times you fall into the trap of fearing to ask again. I know I've been there, like a couple of times. I've felt afraid of saying, maybe I still don't understand what you actually told me. But usually you find another way of rephrasing the very question you asked. Or just be honest and say, I super didn't understand what you actually explained to me. And usually the mentors are very generous. They'll explain again. However, the problem is usually the contributors. They always fear, like, I'll feel like I'm dumb, like I just never get things at first. However, I think that's the barrier. If you do not insist on understanding what you're actually supposed to be working on, you will not achieve anything. Yeah. You'll keep hopping to another community, you'll face the same thing. Yeah. So the best thing to do is ask until you understand, until you know how to continue.
Wow, that's cool. That's amazing. So, continuing on a similar note, I want to ask you, what are the things you felt you learned while contributing to open source that you think you would not have learned otherwise?
Okay, I think there's a very big lesson I learned when I was contributing to qutebrowser. Debugging skills. I think that's the most important thing I learned, especially when I was starting out. When you're contributing to open source, you're dealing with big code bases, right? A lot
Yeah.
of code
Yeah.
usually. And so if you do not know how to debug and know where you actually are or where actually the code is breaking, so I felt like at first I really saw like debugging was a very important skill you should learn when you're starting out or anything basically. And secondly, I noticed that testing, writing tests for your code is very important. That's one thing I used I actually hated unit testing because I didn't see a point in it at first. However, it's very important that you test whatever code you commit, it's tested, right? I think that's very important. So basically, I've learned like two basically technical issues. However, I've also learned to communicate technical things clearly. It's one thing to communicate but communication to be understood, I think it's the most important. And this is a skill I didn't learn anywhere, whether in school or I just learned it when I began contributing to open source. I noticed that even if you are a mentor and you cannot communicate things to be understood, then you do not make sense most times in open source, because most people chat with you to understand when they are stuck, or to understand if you're a contributor, at what point you are stuck, so it's important that you learn how to communicate very clearly.
Wow. So yeah, I think that's a really good sentence you just said there. Communication is important, but communication to be understood is even more important. That's great. And
Yeah.
so you mentioned about large code bases, and debugging is understanding debugging is a little harder when there are large code bases involved. So I want to ask you, so most contributors, even me, like when I started contributing, I was really intimidated by the huge code. I didn't know where to start, how I would wrap my mind around such huge code bases. Did you face anything like that? And if you did, how did you solve this problem?
Like I just said, when I was starting out on qutebrowser, yeah, it was the biggest code base I'd ever met. Like editing, I think it's usually easier to start a project from scratch than edit an existing project.
Yeah.
So big code bases are usually super, they really scare a lot. However, that's why I said I think debugging helped me a lot. So being able to step in your code, you're able to know, like, I'm now executing this line. That's what debugging skills or tools really help you achieve. So you can be able to follow, like, line by line where you are in the code. So it helps you navigate those big code bases. That's why I believe debugging skills are basically very important in especially navigating and solving things or problems on usually the big code bases we work with.
Oh, nice. And so what do you think, what is the one thing you would have done better while starting out that you would like to share with people who just starting? Is there anything that you would like to share regarding this?
Okay, so when I started, I really felt afraid of asking questions, and I felt like everyone in open source was super smart and like they never got stuck at any point. That is what I thought. So whenever I would work on an issue and I kind of get stuck in the middle, rather than ask, at times I would keep quiet and decide, I think I'm stuck. Actually, one time I just told my mentor I'm stuck, and in my mind, I didn't want to continue with the pull request because I thought I was stuck. But usually, the advice or the solution is, when you're stuck, you're actually supposed to ask your mentor to guide you. Like, I'm stuck here. Just explain to him that really, this is the point at which I'm stuck at, and usually he will advise you. He will give you all the information you need to actually go to the next level. Actually, my current mentor writes whole documentation whenever maybe there is a critical thing, issue you're facing. He usually writes you a lot of documentation, and actually, it has been so helpful to me. So whenever you're stuck, just remember your answer is probably a question away, a chat away with somebody in the community. So if I knew that, I would probably have achieved a lot earlier on when I started out. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So, documentation, I think that's again a plus point to take from here. So, we have a few questions in our live chat, and I have this question actually. So, you mentioned you're pursuing aeronautical engineering. So, how do you find time to contribute to open source projects? How do you manage time? What's your time management magical trick that you have?
Oh, so I think I shared this with you earlier. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, for full time, for times when I need to contribute full time on projects, I have to ensure I'm on vacation at school. Yeah. For example, outreachy. I decided to do outreachy when I'm on vacation. You know, right now I'm on vacation till around late August and early September. That's when I'll come back to school. I'll go back to school. Yeah, so for programs like Google Summer of Code and outreachy, you really need to be on vacation because engineering in itself is a bit tricky. I mean, it requires some kind of serious attention. So for full-time contribution, you had better be on holiday. However, when I'm in school as well. I mean, I always find time over the weekends or in the evenings, you know, maybe when your friends are partying, doing something, you're probably improving a tool that you use, right? So when I'm at school over the weekends, I try to see what tools do I use and what could get better because there are tools I use and I feel like, yeah, it should get better somewhere. And, you know, I either open an issue or try to work on some of them over the weekends and in the evenings. Yeah. So that's
Wow,
how I create things.
that's amazing dedication. Cool. So you've mentioned about working on Qt browser and working on Ceph and your testing project. So what do you feel is the most coolest thing you've coded until now? Out
The
of all
coolest
these?
thing
Yeah.
in open source or general in my whole career.
Both. I mean, feel free to answer away.
Okay, so I'll begin with my general career.
Yeah.
When I was working for a company called Fintech, we were developing banking solutions. So there's this particular thing I coded that I'm still proud of up to now. Well, I was supposed to make a certain web application connect. Actually, it was a desktop application connect to a scanner. There's a scanner used in banking. There's a scanner that Micas checks. So it's called something 50. There's a scanner basically. So what was interesting about this project is that I was using a very old technology, you know, VB6, something called VB6 is a very
Yeah.
old technology. So I managed to hack it, like use VB6 to connect to that scanner and be able to read the checks and everything. It was a hard thing. In the middle of the project, I actually thought I was actually failing because even the people that were helping me also failed to know what to do at some point. However, I managed to pull it off. So up to now, I'm so proud of that. However, in open source, I'm proud of the project I'm currently working on right now with Ceph. The test suits I'm writing, the one in Go. I'm really so proud of what I'm doing right now, given that I've never done anything significant in Go before. So I'm super excited for my current work, however, also for the future work. And I'm hoping that by summer, I'll even be more proud after I've delivered all the test suits in the 3 languages. I think I'll also have some bragging rights after that. So I'm super excited also for end of summer. Yeah.
Yeah, you deserve to brag on that.
No, okay. I hope I'm super anxious. You know, I have two feelings. You know, when I look ahead, I feel like it's so exciting. However, I'm super nervous about will I really achieve all this? Yeah. However, I'm really super excited about the journey and the deliverables that I hope to make. Yeah.
Okay, so we have one more question from a viewer. What is VB6?
Oh, VB6 is a language from .NET, the .NET family of languages. It is super old. It's VB, but a very old version. I'm sure, I don't think anyone is still using VB6 till now. Yeah, but it's a language, it's a programming language. It's one of the oldest versions of VB. Yeah, if you
So
know.
is it valuable learning the language now?
No. Don't even think about it. Come on. I think it died. It should die. If anyone is using it, they should also die as well. It's really old. You don't need to learn it. There are better languages, to learn. There's Go. I mean, Claudia, I really feel there are better languages to learn right now. And I think even Microsoft stopped supporting VB6, so don't even waste your time.
Oh, okay. So if I'm starting to contribute to Ceph or secure browser, okay, let's talk about Ceph for now. So what should, are there any prerequisites that I should be knowing?
Okay, that is very interesting. So, I've actually been, I asked the same question from my mentor. So, Ceph is, there are many ways to begin contributing to Ceph. So the best way to begin is look at Ceph and be able to identify one component you can begin working on, because there are very many subcomponents. There is OSD, there is RGW, there is RBD. So the first thing one needs to focus on is first identify a component they probably want to begin working on. And then Ceph, of course, has many issues. I think I can share a link on
Please, please
some.
do. Yeah, you can just send me the link and I'll post it over here if you want.
So the Ceph has a couple of issues. You can look through and see what you can solve at your time. And of course, the community is so welcoming. Yeah. So when you find an issue you feel you're really interested in working on, reach out the mentor. They usually have they have an IRC channel, Self Develop. I've also sent a link where you can reach out to the community and ask about anything you're stuck at or with rather. And usually you'll feel like it's a bit hard to get into, but I think the community is super good. And you can also reach out on their mailing lists to ask different questions that you may be having. So, in summary, look at the issue log for Ceph. First of all, identify a subcomponent you want to work on. Then look at the issue, the open issues, and identify one that you probably want to begin working on, and then reach the community so that you know where to begin from.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, just a couple of hours ago, I received a question from someone asking me how they should choose organizations to contribute. So, what motivated you to choose Ceph or qutebrowser for that matter?
Okay, so basically, me, I usually have I have three reasons I contribute to projects. Basically, one, I'll contribute to tools I use, because then it's super easy for me to suggest improvements or even work on the improvements, because I really badly miss the feature I'm suggesting, right? So first of all, the tools you use. Two, I consider the stack, the stack of the project, or yeah, because I probably want to begin working on a project that has technologies I'm usually familiar with, because then I'm usually productive enough, right? I can easily open a pull request in the shortest time possible. But three, I've got to learn that curiosity has always won. Usually, for example, Ceph in particular, I was curious about Amazon. I'd never used those Amazon SDKs and the like. And then the fact that it was the project required to write, to use three languages, I was really curious. I also wanted to learn something new. So usually choose a project where either you're comfortable with the stack because you contribute easily, or two, it's a tool you use, then you're in the best position to suggest features or get motivated to build those features because you badly need them, because you use the product. And three, at times curiosity or the desire to even learn something new. Because if you get used to doing the same thing every day, you'll get bored. Like me, I just don't like doing the same thing every day. So I usually want a project where I'll learn something new, yeah, a thing or two, yeah, basically.
Wow, curiosity is the key then. So, I mean, I've had a lot of takeaways from this session with you. I still have a couple of questions to ask, but I just want to summarize a few things. So, first is that when you start deciding your project or which project you want to start contributing to, I think, like you mentioned, curiosity is the key, and the 3 points you mentioned, of course. And then when you just start talking to the organization or talking to your mentors, be open about communication and make sure that the communication is to be understood, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And feel free to talk to your mentor, and it's okay if you don't feel confident about your first contribution. It's okay if you make mistakes in your first contribution too, right? So I think that
Exactly.
that's actually important, because even though it seems a little silly, I think it's important for validation for new contributors. So,
Yeah.
moving a little away from open source projects, I want to ask you, like, you've been awarded the Grace Hopper Conference Scholarship. So, what are the parameters on which Grace Hopper Conference judges these applications? Because I've seen many people are interested for this, and lots of students apply. Only few. I'm sorry, I don't think it's students, but lots of people apply, and only a few get through. So, what do you think are the parameters on how these applications are judged?
First of all, I would love to say I've also failed at many scholarships, so I'll probably not be a guru. However, I would love to say something. Usually, when before you apply for a scholarship, there's usually something called the eligibility criteria. Yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, you have to ensure that you meet the eligibility criteria. So usually, Grasshopper will say maybe these scholarships, you should be a student first of all. You should be
Okay.
this. You should be this. You should be above 18 years. So the first thing you need to ensure is you meet the criteria. Then two, usually Grasshopper will ask for you to write an essay, and they will require you to indicate why you feel what are the getaways you take from Grasshopper conference. Why do you really want to go for Grasshopper conference? So you should also ensure that you work on your essay. Yeah, like work on your essay. Ensure that you give them the right reasons to sponsor you, right? Like, for example, you do not want to just tell them, I just want to visit the US, You probably want to give them real reasons and how you will impact other women when you come back to your country after Grasshopper conference. I believe those are the things they are looking at mostly. And I would want to say at times you have the good essay and everything. So never think that whenever you fail at a scholarship, you really suck at writing your essays or everything. Sometimes I feel it's luck. And if you just didn't go through this year, next year is also another opportunity for you to apply again. So yeah, follow the eligibility criteria. Ensure you put some good time on your essay. I mean, you always have friends in your network. They can also help you review your essay and suggest give you some feedback on your essay before you finally submit it. However, just never feel like you're bad at writing essays. Sometimes things just happen, like you're not selected. Not that you're not good enough, but maybe you just need to apply the next time. Yeah, and usually maybe there is competition in that time you're applying, and maybe next year you can apply and get it. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So don't give up and keep on applying.
Yes, and work on ensure you meet you meet the
Eligibility. Yeah.
eligibility criteria before you apply.
So, you mentioned about having a network and how it's been really important for you. So, did this network motivate you to contribute to open source, or what actually motivated you to start contributing to open source?
Yeah, first of all, I think we are all with our networks
Yeah.
usually. So if you hang out with people that are probably not so interested in open source, you probably won't also move into that same direction, I guess. So one, of course, network plays a big role in our lives. whether in open source or any other thing. So when I had that passion for contributing open source, I began reaching out to people that I believe would help me, right, get better and get better at basically contributing to open source. And these networks are not so very far away. These people are usually in the tech meetups we go to, at tech conferences. When you find a mentor at one of the tech conferences, just reach out and ask him a few things about how you can begin contributing. Yeah, so the network is there. You get only that it will not come to you most times. It's you supposed to go to them, right? They are not usually looking for you. So it's you to make the first step, to reach out to them and see how you can really get better at what you're passionate about.
Nice. And open source help community is also a network, by the way. So
Yeah,
yeah, so if
exactly. I think I want to say something about the open source help
oh,
community.
please
I think
do.
I really support what it really stands for, and I respect its agenda because I was just lucky that I went through Rose Girls Summer of Code, but I'm sure I have a feeling if I didn't get that chance, I would probably not be contributing to open source because I really was looking for a way of somebody to introduce me. I would always look at people's profiles on GitHub and admire their profiles, like, when they have that section of projects they contribute to it, I really admire them, but I didn't know how, until I had a community that tried to nurture me into contributing, and that was Wales Girls Summer of Code. But I'm happy there's a community like the open source help community that's able to help new contributors to get into, they can suggest to you organizations. They have a lot of documentation on the different projects available there. So yeah, it's also one community and network that's valuable at that time, I think.
Thank you. That was sweet. And even I want to add upon that. Basically, I think lots of open source contributors right now, they get motivated through programs like Rails Girl Summer of Code or Outreachy or Google Summer of Code. And when they don't have these methods of contributing, they don't really get the motivation to contribute, or they don't really get the mentorship or advice on how to get started over contributing. So I think open source help community will help you in that respect as well. Cool. So I have one last question. So you're writing a book. I mean, that is mind blowing. Totally mind blowing. You're actually writing a book on Python compatibility. So what inspired you to write that book? And tell us more about that book.
Okay. So early this year, I was working on one open source task about providing support to a Python 3 project in one of the companies. And when I was looking up content, like things to read about in order to achieve my task, to work on my task, I noticed a scarcity of documentation on the subject about Python 2 and 3 compatibility. I'm talking about ensuring you provide both Python 2 and 3 compatibility in a unified code base, in a single code base. I mean, you write one Python script that is capable of running on both Python 2 and 3. So I looked up a couple of resources online, and the most valuable resource I saw was from Ed Schofield. So Ed Schofield provides a cheat sheet, actually, where a cheat sheet just gives you bulleted ideas on how to provide Python 2 and 3 compatibility. So, and then the other books, they would have like one chapter on the subject, and yet that was my basis. I wanted a whole book that would explain in depth about the subject, because I usually don't like doing things I don't understand. I want to do something I really understand, as opposed to just following a cheat sheet. So whenever I would solve something, I would write something down in a markdown, for my blog. However, as the days went by, I noticed that the markdowns were beginning to get longer. Like they were long. They began getting very long as the day went by. So I wrote to Apress. I told them I wanted to write a book on the subject. I actually wrote to also other publishers, and I was happy to sign a book deal with Apress. And they're so excited about what the book is about. So really, I was inspired from one of the projects I was working on, again, an open source project. And due to the fact that there was little documentation on the subject, I decided maybe my book would be a resource to somebody else that would love to learn about the subject, because as you know, we are nearing the end of life of Python 2. And however, we cannot deny the fact that we still have projects or people that are still running Python 2 code at some point. So us assuming that the whole world will all of a sudden move to Python 3 completely is just a nightmare. Like, it's unrealistic. So people will just need maybe project owners or maintainers will just need maybe to find a way of ensuring their code or their libraries are able to run reliably on both Python 2 and 3. And so I think that skill is going to be very relevant. And I know very many people are going to be looking out for knowledge on how to ensure they provide for neutral compatibilities in their code bases to developers, but also people that just use Python, or some companies that have deployed Python 2 projects, and then they may want to support Python 3. And, so I believe this comes at the right time, and it will be valuable to people.
Great. So to our viewers, if you are writing a blog or you are writing notes or documents about how to contribute to your project, maybe even consider writing a book about it. I think this is incredibly, don't limit your capabilities. So this is awesome. So when does this book become available, by the way?
Okay, so it's according to a press, we decided to say let's expect it before January. But internally, we think the book will be out by October. However, it's safe for the world to know that to expect the book in paperbacks before January 18. Yes.
Wow, that's awesome. So that is it for our session today. And I've had incredible fun talking to you, Joanna, and I've learned so much, seriously, so much today. And I think a lot of contributors, a lot of viewers might have also picked up important points for doing this. And so you mentioned a couple of links during our session. So I'll post these links in the live chat or in this our Slack channel. So if you're interested, you can also join our Slack channel. And well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Joanna.
Thank you too. I was super excited for this talk, and thanks Open Source Hope community. I'm so humbled.
Yeah, and we're glad to have you too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.